But he met me and had a handshake, and the first thing he says to me is, "Man, are these the pilots of the next generation? What a bunch of retards." And he's not wrong. You know how hard it is to rally a bunch of musicians and say, let's get together and form a band that's going to earn money tomorrow. You know,
I failed. I know how hard it is.
It's ridiculously hard. You know,
men have a daily cycle almost, while
Right.
women have a monthly cycle.
right.
So we're always trying to procreate and just expand.
That's a cool perspective, all right.
Yeah, so we're all trying to expand,
Yeah,
and that
okay.
leads into why those olden kings were like, I need this country and this country.
Was actually a real big risk. I was 30, man, when I started flying.
That's a risk.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Especially coming from a typical Asian family.
Oh, like that. Okay.
You know, like, and the Asian family is gonna tell you, you know, you got to go be a pilot at 30. What's wrong with you? There's no careers at 30. When you're never gonna make captain. Of course, even if they don't tell you this, by the time you hit 30, you know what they're gonna say. So I went from one paradigm of shame into another paradigm of shame. In the process of me explaining these things to you,
Yeah.
I also can see another perspective.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Zephyr Show. On this episode, I have with me a friend, Sherman Anthony.
Hello.
What a name. We'll ask him to explain that one in a bit. And
dear.
he is somebody I admire and somebody who I've known for over 10 years now. We met in the music scene. Our paths have intertwined in different ways. He's gone through a pretty interesting life path. And as you know, this show's about life success, authenticity, spirituality, and that type of stuff. I want to get some of your perspectives on these different things. And the audience is...
Just so you know, I have no clue what to expect.
yeah.
He didn't give me anything.
Yeah, we haven't planned this at all.
I literally got it like 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, so it's
So-
all impromptu questions.
Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, I haven't planned anything either.
All right,
so
man.
we're just going to flow.
Let's flow.
The first thing I want to ask you, what would you call yourself now?
Sherman. That's it.
Yeah?
Yeah, just Sherman. If you meet me, just call me Sherman too. Like,
Okay.
you know, is there a specific context you're trying to ask me this in?
It's open.
No, just Sherman. Like,
Okay.
I don't think I've changed as a person. You know, so well, that's not true. I probably have changed as a person. But I think the foundation of who I am
Yeah,
has not changed. So, haha,
I like that.
yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
actually, yeah. So I like that you're a person who like leads with yourself first. I do the same.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think many people who have interesting lives, they do that. And we sort of focus on our own growth and our own journey
Yeah.
and treat it as us going through a journey
Yeah.
rather than, hi, I'm Sherman, the front man leader of this band. Or,
Yeah.
hi, I'm Sherman, the flying instructor at this school or
Yeah.
whatsoever.
100%. Yeah.
The funny story is I actually had a musician once tell me, don't do that. They were like, so who are you now? I was like, I'm just Zephyr. Don't do that. Don't do that. And he had it in his head somewhere that you can't be yourself. And he had all this conditioning about, anyway, but
Interesting. Yeah. Everyone's got a perspective on this.
everyone's
Everyone's got thinking how to be who you are.
Exactly.
But if you literally talking about success and everything.
Yeah.
Hey, our drinks are here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This rock. This is killer, bro.
Is that the soda? Is that
That
okay?
is soda. That's legendary.
Can I
Thank you
give
so
this
much.
back to you?
Yeah, I give you this. This is fantastic. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk and pour this.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so essentially, I was telling you like,
We need to
Essentially-
speak up a bit. Yeah.
essentially I was telling you like, if you look at success, you talk about success in this show, and
Yeah.
all the successful people, you know,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how you feel about how they got their success. You know, they're all authentically themselves. So the whole concept of like, let's try to be someone else, and I've been guilty, man, of trying to be someone else too. You know, like especially if you talk about music life, my life in the music, which is a big part of my life. Before right now, it's disappeared completely from the face of the universe. I actually think that most people in Australia, where I live now, I live in Australia by the way now. You know, most of them don't even know that I had a life in music for that long. People don't know what I did for a living before I left before I left Singapore.
Has that been deliberate?
Yeah,
Like you kept it from them?
100%. And partially it's, I'll be honest here,
Yeah.
partially it's shame. You know, and I don't know whether that's a family thing or whether that's a Asian thing or Singapore thing. I don't know what it is. I just know that I feel a genuine sense of shame. It's not gone away, by the way. It's not gone away. I've not like suddenly done something else and feel like I feel proud of where I come from.
I have the same.
Really,
But the show's about you, so carry on.
Man, it doesn't matter, man. Like if you feel the same, then that for me as well, it does something, because very often I feel very alone in this. I don't feel like there's many people who understand that coming from a life of music, especially in Singapore or Asia, there's a perception that it's not a very respectable career. I mean, maybe it's the older generation that will say this. Musicians are all playboys, all druggies. These are musicians. This is what they do. Like I don't think I've been much of a playboy I don't think I've been a druggie. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
But it's, and not more than anyone else. Like, in my lifetime, I've smoked and I've drank alcohol. Those are drugs. Panadol, that's drugs. Like,
That's true. Panadol is a drug.
It's like there is no substance to that thinking, but there is a sense of shame, stigma attached to it. And so I've last 10 years, I've not stepped in that music arena at all, like zero. I mean, like, I've stepped away from it, and 6 months ago I started a journey coming back to it, but a completely different perspective. I do not want to play on a stage ever again. I have no interest to be on stage in front of people, 150, or whether it's 50 people, 100 people, or 1,000 people, or 10,000 people. I have no interest to be on any form of stage. Instead, I have the interest to be with a piano in my bedroom, or with a bass on a chair with some friends. You know what I mean? Just for fun. And it's insane how much fun it was playing music. Like it's actually fun. And people watching you is fun too. And if they appreciate it, which happens from time to time here, especially, because sometimes they don't even tell you if they appreciate it.
Correct.
And there is something fun about it. But I think if I ask myself why I did it in the first place, none of it was because I wanted people to clap for me at the end of the show, or at the end of the song, or because I wanted recognition for being this. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy the recognition. I did. I leveraged off of it like hell. Do you know what I mean? Like, if there was any bit of press or any bit of media on what I was doing, I soaked in it. Do you know what I mean? But that's just what you do in that line of work.
Yeah.
You don't shy away from that. So, long story short, it's already long, by the way. I did feel a sense of shame about it. So I didn't tell anyone in Australia about it. But that's turned to a strength. Now people don't know what I'm about in Australia. I've done something else in my life in Australia. Now I run an aviation business in Australia. And it's very competitive, and no one seems to know that, as in any industry that's competitive, people will try to work you out what your next steps are, and especially
like outcompete you.
Well, even strategically,
okay.
Especially when you're new, when you're a new player in a very competitive environment, people will try to work you out, essentially try to crush you before you start.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and I get why they do that. I used to hate it. Now I think thanks for trying to crush me. It must mean I'm worth crushing to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, otherwise you wouldn't even think about me. So I've leveraged off of it. I started a whole new perspective. I started going down this rabbit hole of, if you think about me now, I want you to think about me all the damn time. Like, sleep thinking about me. Tell your wife about me when at night. Oh my God, what the hell is Sherman doing? I can't understand it. That's exactly what I want you to do. So I'm going to keep doing weird shit that I know is inspired from my past. The shit that I actually like. And you can't be someone else.
Yeah.
Inspired, like, be a Bon Jovi, try to be a Bon Jovi or something, and live like specific artists that's not yourself.
Yeah.
And do something original, because fundamentally it's not original.
Right.
So you have to lead with yourself. Like, I have to think back to what I want. And it's weird because I had some friends, some very successful friends, who told me how to live my life when I become successful. I've actually had friends in the past who have told me how to be successful, telling me things like, Sherman, if you do things that I love to do, not me, I mean the person loves to do, that you will definitely love this. You know what I mean? And this is the way you should live when you're successful. And for the moment, I would say, yeah, sure, okay, I'll give it a shot. And sometimes I give it a small shot and say, look, fundamentally, I don't enjoy these things. Say, for example, fishing. I don't really enjoy fishing. Do you know what I mean? I just don't. You know what I mean? Like, and I know some wealthy guys who just love fishing.
Right.
And I love the guy, but I just don't love fishing. If I had all the money in the world, would I go off and buy a big boat and go fishing? No, I'm not going to do that. I might hang out with you on your boat. The only reason I'm on your boat because I like you. You know what I mean? Like, it's not because I like fishing.
So do you think he asked you that, as in he told you that? You haven't finished your point. Why do you think he's telling you all this, or what's the point you're coming to?
I think, like, it's related to what you're saying. Like, people tell you, don't be your authentic self. Don't lead with authentic
Oh,
self.
right.
Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha. So this is how rich people act, and this is what the rich people do. So why don't you start doing it now that you're rich?
Not all rich people, but some people. And
Some of
they don't
them,
even have to be rich.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not rich. They just tell you how they want to be. You know, like,
Oh yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like
How they want you to be.
yeah. So it could be as simple as like a trend, you know, a fashion thing. You know,
Yeah.
the guy's not rich. He's like, hey bro, you know, I like Nikes, so you gotta wear Nikes. You know, and
Yeah.
you feel this insane pressure to wear Nikes,
Right.
but not because you like Nikes, because this other clown likes Nikes. You just happen to like the guy, so you're saying to yourself, okay, I'll go off
Yeah.
and buy Nikes to
Yeah.
fit in with this crowd. You know what I mean? But
So you don't do that.
I don't do that.
Okay.
I buy what I like now. You know, I'm not going to say I didn't do that before. I did before. You know, I would buy things that people like, or I lead with things that people like, just to be included. You know, but now, man, I've left 10 years. I've left Singapore 10 years. For the last 10 years, I don't see the point. You know,
Yeah.
people in Australia don't give a shit what I do.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Most
Yeah.
people don't give a shit what I do.
Okay.
And if I was to go off and do what I like, it's authentic.
Yeah.
If they don't like it, I'm not gonna say please come and do what I like. You know, I give you an example.
Sure.
I really like shopping for shoes. I do. Okay, I know there are shoe enthusiasts out there who say, "Oh,
You
Sherman-"
do or you don't?
I do.
You do. Yeah.
You know,
okay.
I know there are shoe enthusiasts. You know, guys who like sneakers and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, Sherman, you know, you got to buy these fancy like ones that are worth like tons of money."
Yeah.
And have a whole display cabinet. And these guys are purists. You know, they love this level of investment in their shoes.
Right.
I don't really want that. I like the weird things. I just like the way that the shoe looks. If it fits well on my feet, it's not a brand sometimes. Sometimes it is. And if I like it, I'm buying it. Doesn't matter what you think, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me any less of a shoe enthusiast. It just
Correct.
makes me a different kind of shoe enthusiast.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
So authentic, basically.
yeah, that's essentially it.
So I feel let's spin off that concept a bit. So not to sound self-righteous or anything, but I found as I was researching artists when I was in music, and like when we met, so you were doing the things I wanted to do,
Right,
like
okay.
be a front man, leading a band, and so on. I had on some level, but as a drummer, in Singapore the mentality is a bit different, or maybe it was just the people I was hanging around with.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I found as I was researching more, and I used to go to Kinokuniya and spend like $30 of hard-earned money buying a biography. Now my house is full of them.
Yeah.
I haven't read half of them yet, but I read some, and I realized that all the artists who've ever been great or big artists in Hollywood or elsewhere, even like I bought Vanessa Lopez's book, for example, they've all, if you look at Michael Jackson's albums, he's not just an R&B artist, although he started as one. He's not just a pop artist. He's not just a rock artist
Yeah.
because some of his songs had guitar. He's basically just sharing his life through the song.
That's it. Yeah, pretty much.
So it could be various genres, various things as their life goes on, and they're just sharing it.
It's interesting you say that, man.
Yeah.
Because like, if you take that at a smaller level, look at
Yeah.
the iconic people even in Singapore. At least when I was playing, you know, people like Zul Sultan,
Right.
You know, he was 100% authentic
Right.
about at least to the best of my knowledge. I'm
Right.
sure he copied a bunch of lines from a bunch of people, but which artist doesn't?
Yeah, of
Do you
course.
know what I mean? Like,
We call it inspiration.
yeah, you know, like we all copy a bunch of shit from other people.
Yeah.
You know, but if you ever watched him play and in his iconic little space,
Yeah.
you notice that he's just being his authentic self. He
Correct.
came in his style of clothing. I didn't know anyone else would rock up in like his style of clothing. You know,
I've never actually met him. So what did he wear?
Bermudas and like these
Bermuda.
kind of Bermudas, you know,
Okay. Yeah.
and like a shirt and he's big chubby guy,
Yeah.
and you pick up his guitar and you do it, you know. But where are you gonna see that in back in the day? You're not gonna
Yeah.
see that.
Not in Singapore.
Not in Singapore. You know, everyone was like dressing up at the time, trying to look like a preacher. I was trying to look like a preacher too. You know, like you know, the jackets and the jeans and the John Mayer
Yeah.
look and everything. You know, like at that time, it was such a big deal. Like, looking the part. You know.
Yeah.
But and even in the bands I used
Yeah.
to run, I would think like that as well. Image is such a big deal. Now take that, move
Yeah.
it to my life today.
Yeah.
I'm still doing the same thing. Like
Yeah.
there is an image in any business.
Of course.
Yeah, you know, like that you want to upkeep, and your image sells your business. You know, like so you have to have a vision of how it's going to look like. You may not achieve it, but you come pretty close. Either way,
Yeah.
you want to be original about it. You know,
Yeah.
last thing you want to look like is a spin-off of someone else. You know, like
True.
Yeah.
True. Especially if it's an obvious spin-off.
yeah, 100%.
So, Yeah. So, okay, thanks for that. So I'm curious. You were quite, from what I remember, you were quite deep into the music thing,
Yeah.
and as so was I.
Yeah.
And I believe that's why we tried to do these projects together for a while.
Yeah, we did actually. Yeah.
So by the way, just to update you, just full disclosure, I'm way better at mixing now.
That's fantastic.
So if I go back to those raw files,
I didn't think you were bad.
I'll
back
make
then.
you song. No, that was just me fucking around. I was just being.
Right.
I was new.
Right.
Yeah, I was hardworking and enthusiastic, but I was new. Now I'm listening back and I'm going, how did I even send him back that if he was a paying client? Like that doesn't even make
But
sense.
that's learning, man.
But that's learning.
That's learning.
But the good news is that now if you send me something, it'll sound pretty good. And now have enough context where if I can't make it sound good, I could send it to them and it'll sound pretty good.
But the bad news is I can't play for nuts now.
But I mean,
can't
that's
play
just a
at
few days
all,
of practice.
Man. Yeah, no, I it's different, man. Like
Okay.
I'm not even driven like I was before
Okay.
to play well, you know. And it's funny because I didn't think I was good at that time.
I had that same journey as you actually.
Really?
And I want to share it with you.
Okay.
So to me, you seemed at that point really, really deep into it. Right? You were okay. Here's my assessment,
Cool.
not a judgment or
Cool.
anything.
Go
but
for it, yeah.
along the way, I've counseled some clients. I went off thinking I'm a healer, and
Okay.
I mean, I guess I am. I have some testimonials and things.
Everyone is at some level, aren't they?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And everyone needs a job at some level, and so
Yeah.
I'm still being me. But I'm calling that my career.
Okay.
I'm coaching people, or now we're doing like a talk show.
Yeah.
Somebody goes, "Oh, you're that guy from TikTok." Somebody told me at a trial recently
Right,
when I was
okay,
in
cool.
court,
I don't even have TikToks.
and I only have 200 followers on TikTok. So I don't know what they
Skill.
mean by "you're that guy from TikTok." What they mean is they saw a video, right?
Yeah.
But these are things we do on the regular to live in society.
Yeah.
But my point is, I thought that a little bit like what you said, which is I saw that you thought that you were a beginner in a sense.
Yeah.
You were keen to learn. And that's probably why you were doing so many things.
Yeah.
And you were enthusiastic. And as somebody, and this crosses over into spirituality, it crosses over into
Right.
excitement, it crosses over into maybe just a little bit of ego and fame. You know, like you're saying, like, I can do this, You know, it's great. But you know what? I saw that there was a very earnest, innocent and enthusiastic drive. And I recognize, and I'm not guessing there. If I may, I'm just stating that as a fact.
Right. Okay.
Because when you do something yourself, you can see it, another person doing the same thing, and you go, "Oh, he's doing that thing."
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I
yeah.
do that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I could see that. Okay, you're hungry to grow and hungry to learn many things, and you were doing great at many of these things. You were like playing in bars,
Oh, I don't know if that's.
concerts and gigs.
Yeah.
Wait, I haven't come to my question
Yeah,
yet.
okay, go on. Go
Okay,
on.
so sorry. So, how did it go from all that? And it's okay if you don't want to share, but how did it go from all that to I'm now going to Australia, I'm learning flying, I'm going to be a pilot? I'm sure, there's 10 factors that influenced it, but what I'm sensing is it had a little bit to do, and I could be wrong, but tell me here, with earning as a musician in Singapore. Maybe it has to do with a little bit of that shame thing that you said. I feel like this guilt, like I'm doing
Oh,
something
100%,
wrong when
yeah.
I'm doing music.
Yeah.
And maybe just, I'm at a new stage of my life. I want to explore new things,
Yeah.
and men have this expansion thing. And it goes into like biology and spirituality where they go like, that's why men cheat because that's why they like to, men have a daily cycle almost while
Right.
women have a monthly cycle.
Right.
So we're always trying to procreate and just expand,
That's a cool perspective. All right.
yeah, so we're all trying to expand.
Yeah,
and that
okay.
leads into why those olden kings were like, I need this country and this country,
Yeah.
So was it any of these? And was there other things? And how did that transition, rather why, if you know what happened that led to that transition of flying and flying school? I see the similarity. It's a
okay.
kind of expansive energy flying.
Okay, this is a big thing to unpack.
Yeah. But can you break it down for us?
I think I can break down some parts of it.
Okay.
I don't think we have a lot of time to go down into the. It's almost impossible to go to explain it in a day.
Next
it's-
episode.
or maybe that kind of thing might take multiple episodes.
Multiple episodes.
You
So
know what I
I'll
mean?
have you back on the show next time. But go on.
You know, like, yeah, like I said, I don't know who's watching this,
Yeah.
but I promise you I'll be transparent and honest.
Yeah, if you can.
as I answer these things.
Yeah.
And if I'm uncomfortable about anything, I'll tell you.
Yeah, sure.
Look, I think it's a combination of many things, but it's not okay. Leaving this thing that I dedicated my entire life to go off and pursue something else. Don't even talk about whether it's flying or cooking or whatever. By the way, I can't cook. I still can't cook. Okay, like so it's not cooking, it's flying for me. But for someone else, it might be cooking. You know,
Yeah.
it might be, I don't know, it might be, you know, OnlyFans. Who knows? You know, whatever they decide to do.
Yeah.
You know, like, but I decided to go off and do something like flying. And flying was actually a real big risk. I was 30, man, when I started flying. You know, like
That's a risk.
that's, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Especially coming from a typical Asian family.
Oh, like that. Okay.
You know, like, and the Asian family is gonna tell you, you know, you go be a pilot at 30. What's wrong with you? There's no careers at 30. When you're never gonna make captain. Of course, even if they don't tell you this, by the time you hit 30, you know what they're gonna say. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
totally.
So I went from one, I guess, one paradigm of shame into another paradigm of shame. Do you know what I mean? Like, in a way, while the rest of the world is going, oh great, this guy's gonna go become a pilot. He's 30, man. What the hell's wrong with this dude? Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not, you know, is he just wasting his money? Is he just, what is he doing? You know?
Yeah.
You know, so I'll unpack it this way.
Tell us about you.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll unpack it in this way. The first step is what led me to leave.
Yeah.
It's a totally different thing from what led me to choose aviation.
Okay.
Okay, so choosing aviation, in fact, when there was the first thing was there was a specific moment where I decided, like, that's it. I've done enough in this part, like trying out in this career for pretty much my whole life. You know, ever since I'm a kid, man, this is all I wanted to do.
Okay.
Like, there were moments me and my dad would have arguments. Like, I didn't want to study because I want to go and learn music. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I get that. So I didn't really do well in school. You know, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead, I would much rather go and learn another song, you know, or learn a cool line or some riff, or even more another instrument. You know, like, you know, and watch bands and go down that rabbit hole. So I did that for half my life, only to come to this point where I realized this is not it. Money played a huge part in that in that decision, especially watching my peers. By the time you're 29, you watch your peers who had regular jobs since they were 18. They got, especially in Singapore, you got things like CPF money
Yeah, it's
stashed
painful.
away. And while I had some CPF money,
Yeah.
it's not like I had anything compared to those guys. And any musician who's going to say otherwise, like, unless you've been getting paid CPF by your employer for the longest time in the music line, back in the day, it was rare. Maybe today they do it, but back in the day, it's rare. Towards my late 20s, it became more common
To have CPF.
to have CPF. You know,
Right.
like the last job I held in the music line was in a Thai disco. And the Thai club, from my memory, paid me my CPF, you know, like, because it was done in a legitimate way, you know, like it was done with a contract and,
Can we just pause here very quick?
Yeah.
Just to tell the overseas audience what CPF is.
okay.
So CPF is, hey man, how are you?
Hey bro, how you going?
Okay, so just to let our overseas viewers know what CPF is.
Okay.
So I'm just going to summarize and you can too.
Okay.
I think it's like a compulsory saving for citizens.
Yeah.
It's like a bit of a tax, but then it goes into this account, which you can use for various things.
Yeah.
The positive side is like it's a compulsory saving.
I don't see it this way.
Okay,
But,
how do you see
okay,
it?
I'll summarize CPF. Okay,
Sure.
it's my summary CPF. CPF is called the Central Provident Fund.
Yeah.
Best of my knowledge, right? You have a portion of your income to the Singapore government that is deducted, put into this account. Your employer matches it, right? And so you've got two incomes, like I guess two contributions at the same time at every paycheck. And that compounds over time. And it can be used for investments,
Yep.
but it's essentially a retirement fund. That's it. So I don't think it's that's not tax, because there is tax,
Okay.
you know, on top of that. And
Gotcha.
then, yeah, and that's a separate thing.
Oh yeah, there is tax on
There is
top
tax,
of that.
yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, so that's
Okay.
a separate thing.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Okay, carry on
yeah.
about the.
So yeah,
So
and,
there was not many musicians who
Yeah.
had CPF in the day.
and if you look at the job market in any industry, let's say if I wanted to go off and I studied finance, for example. I didn't study finance, but let's say I studied finance.
Yeah.
You go off and get a job in finance.
Yeah.
You'd have fundamental things. You'd have things like benefits.
Yeah.
You'd have things like annual leave.
Yeah.
You'd have things like pay, like stable pay,
Yeah.
and you're not worried about whether or not the contract's going to end in 3 months and some other band's going to rock up and take your gig tomorrow. You know, like the amount of fear that you constantly live with as a
Totally.
musician,
I could go on for days.
trying to work, you know, in an industry that is extremely like competitive. You know, like I know some musicians who used to describe it as a toxic environment. I won't say it's toxic. I would say it's competitive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because there is no industry where there are no toxic people. There exists in every industry.
That's
Believe me. If there's any one of you out there is in aviation, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like,
Oh.
yeah, it's true.
Okay.
Like in my first year in uni,
Yeah.
I had one guy from Hong Kong, really good friend of mine now, and he's moved to Canada now. And this guy, first thing he did in uni, I was thinking it, I didn't say it, but he met me and had a handshake, and the first thing he says to me is, "Man, are these the pilots of the next generation? What a bunch of retards." And he's not wrong. He was thinking it.
Was he one of the students?
He was,
And this is pilot school.
This was university, like aviation degree. This was a real
Aviation degree,
the
okay.
Bachelor of Aviation. Like,
Okay.
which is what I did in Australia. Like,
Oh, I didn't know there's a
yeah.
Bachelor of Aviation.
I did that. Yeah, I did that.
I thought it was more like a skills-based course, and then you just go and become a pilot.
Well, that's another topic. There
Okay.
is your license training,
All right.
which is what you do for your license, and that's not always connected to your academic outcome.
Gotcha.
Yeah, of course, it's preferable if you have an academic
Gotcha.
outcome. And I didn't really have both at the time, so I went full throttle on both.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I did both. I did all the flying and got licenses, and I did the whole degree thing too. And in some countries, they package it together as one package, and you might even get government funding. But I was an international student, so I didn't get any government funding.
Right.
It's brutal. If you're self-funding flight training, it is brutal, but totally worth it. So do it.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah.
So the guy from Hong Kong, he was saying,
He was saying,
I made you spin off. Sorry.
like, he said like, man, what a bunch of retards. But like,
Yeah.
I don't think he was saying like everyone's a bunch of retards, but he was saying like, look at this cohort of people, and there is a bunch of retards among them that could somehow fall through the cracks and actually end up employed in some airline. At that time I didn't understand that there is a filtration system. You pass your training, you get your licenses, you go through interviews, which of course you learn that later on in life. You learn that you go through interviews and you make it through the interviews, then you make it through the training.
Yeah.
And if the employer finds that you are what they want, they give you a job, and they deal with that. The
Right.
rest of that. If you really are a retard and you make it through the cracks, then
Yeah.
you're not the people's problem, you're the employer's problem.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and if you really are an absolute retard, you may not even last very long. And that's the same in any industry. So I look at that and say, with that knowledge, I look at the music industry and say,
Yeah.
wait, was it toxic? There were toxic elements. But essentially it was just competitive. In Singapore especially.
Right.
It was just competitive.
Competitive.
And ruthless. Which is why it's such a cool training ground for literally anything else that you
In
want to do
life.
in life. Whether you want to go off and open a online business selling clothing or whatever,
Yeah.
it's fantastic training. You learn how to manage people like no one else will
Yeah.
teach you. Drunk people,
Yeah.
like a room full of them, in masses.
Yeah.
And then you learn to manage emotional, artistic types in groups.
That's
on the
true.
daily, man. Egos will fly.
Yeah.
Comments will happen. Sometimes punch ups. It's not a fun environment in the long term.
Yeah.
All the musicians came together for the same reason. They love music.
Yeah.
Put some dollars to it.
Yeah.
Suddenly it becomes a job.
Correct.
And the love for music, which was the foundation of why you entered the industry in the first place, takes a backseat. And a few years later, you find yourself going, I gotta eat. And you join this pool of people who are online or somewhere in a group commenting about how artists gotta eat, you gotta pay better prices. But a lot of times, a lot of musicians or artists will forget that it's not the same. You are an artist, business is business. People will pay not what you think you're worth. They will pay you what they think you're worth. And that's the reality of life.
Of course. That's everything.
Yeah, and even they would pay for things that what they think. There's restaurants out there that are ridiculously expensive. It might be worth something. It doesn't mean you're gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean these musicians are saying, oh, this pasta is magical, so I'm gonna spend $2,000 on it.
Yeah.
They're not gonna do that. You know what I mean? It might be same thing. You might be worth like a whole bunch of money, but doesn't mean people are gonna pay you their money.
Unless you price it that way and it gets into their head.
So there's
So
gotta
why
be,
did you leave? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
You said there was two reasons. There was a reason that you left and a reason you did aviation.
Yeah, I left because I think that I felt that I was no longer. I think I felt I had given everything I could to this,
Yeah.
and I could not. Like it wasn't linked to what I wanted in my life in terms of like just living. Like
just living.
Like if I could, like the love for music is not gonna go away. Even if I stop playing for 10 years, 20 years, I can always come back to it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not an issue. I didn't like the sense of shame. You know, it was not healthy. I was not happy on multiple levels. My relationships were paying the price for it. You know, I had no sleep all the time because I'm sleeping at 7 in the morning, waking up at 5 p.m., going to work. You
I
know?
would say, from what I remember, you were a remarkably jolly and well-balanced person, despite the lack of sleep. Because after having a
100%.
kid, I've understood what lack of sleep does to your
Yeah.
brain. It fucks you up.
It's brutal. It is brutal.
Dude, I and my wife nearly divorced every week. And then you realize, wait, that's every married couple. I was
Yeah,
reading more
yeah,
blog
that's
articles
true.
and like, we were threatening divorce because the washing machine hadn't been switched on or
Yeah.
whatever. I read it in an article.
Yeah.
Then I realized, oh, okay, we just had lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Now that our daughter's slightly older and sleeps through it, we're both more calm.
Yeah.
Suddenly, my wife and I looking at each other in admiration as opposed to hate. And we're like, wait, what happened here? Did we just suddenly become more mature? No.
Don't you
We
think
just had a lot more sleep.
don't you think it's conditioning as well?
For sure.
Like I think like once I got the hang of like functioning at a very high level with very little sleep, you know, the next day waking up the next day and doing the same thing again, even though there was not much reward, you
Yeah.
know, was not a bad idea. I wasn't against it. I wake up night after night and do the same thing again. 5 p.m. wake up and
Isn't what conditioning? Your question was, isn't it conditioning?
it's the
Isn't what
conditioning.
Affecting what?
Like my conditioning
Yes.
of being able to function and with minimal sleep.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
And
Like,
then you got better at it.
I just got better at it.
That helped. Okay.
Yeah, you know, like so like I reckon a person who is well conditioned to those conditions,
Oh, right,
to functioning
right.
in those conditions.
Yeah.
Like you now with a kid and even before that with the industry and working working nights, you'd be conditioned. You'd be able to function very high level.
I think I've only reached the high level now.
Right. Okay.
Because back then I was just this angsty kid running around the music scene. And
Right.
now I realize why I was angsty. Because a lot of the bands, you know, like 53A and all these other bands,
Yeah.
like I caused them like mini problems here and there.
Yeah, really?
Like, yeah, because I put a Facebook post saying, why aren't they replying? Why do they have an ego? I realized, no, it's not that they have an ego. I'm just being impatient.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking back, so after a few years after that music thing, when I grew more balanced and started releasing my own songs and things, people were like, I never knew you were such a nice guy. I was like, huh? What does that mean? What did I do? They were like, you sound like this angsty, pricky kid running around LaSalle. Then I realized it was the lack of sleep. I wasn't used to it.
It's real, bro. If you don't sleep,
Yeah, so like-
you don't perform. And it's the truth.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been guilty of it. I'm still guilty of it today to some extent. You know, like to some extent, there are certain times in my day-to-day operations where I just don't get much sleep. You know, but you see, that's the thing. The training from the previous career
Yeah.
of functioning at optimally with very little sleep.
Yeah.
Like today when that happens, I don't even flinch.
Has it helped? The
100%.
flying thing?
100%.
Okay.
You know, like of course when I'm flying it's different. I actually get sleep.
Get-
you know, like,
yeah. That's what I hear.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's not just a legal thing, but that's a safety thing.
Yeah, safety.
You know,
yeah.
and there have been moments when I've said to myself, look, I'm really fried. I'm not gonna go fly now.
yeah.
And I just do not fly.
Yeah.
You know, like someone else can go operate the flight. I'm not gonna do it.
And you can decide that because you own the company.
Well, now yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the benefit now.
Okay.
But sometimes it's also a transportation thing.
Right.
So let's say I gotta be in another town, and me and anyone needs to be there together, and we decide to choose to fly there instead of drive there, privately.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we decide to do that, then, if I'm well and good and I've got good rest, and that's also part of the training. You know,
Yeah.
that you learn. You know, you learn to run a checklist even on yourself before you go operate an airplane. You know, so and I'm big on this. I'm huge because I've pushed those boundaries before in my previous career, and I know that in that career nobody dies, but in this career, if you push those boundaries, you might not.
Yeah.
You know,
Stakes are high.
yeah, stakes are high. So a lot of it boils down to what's important to me now, and why did I even get here? I got here because I didn't want that life. I didn't want those stakes.
Right.
So now I just do the things that, like what you said, just do the things that you want to do. You know, like I don't want to go fly when I'm tired. I don't want to go fishing. You know, like I don't want to. You know,
Yeah.
everything in every aspect. Run your checklists, like set up lists. You know, be organized,
Yeah.
be efficient. When you are called to operate at a high level with very little sleep, if you can do it, good. If you cannot, then find alternative solutions. This is what I do. You know, like to operate well.
Yeah.
You know, like may not work for everyone, but it works for me, and it works for me very, very well. I actually think that comes from my previous career. You know,
Totally.
Yeah, I think it comes from even managing people. You know, sometimes knowing what to say, what not to say, when to take over and manage it by action, or when to just delegate.
Yeah.
You know, that's something you learn in nightlife. You know,
So, okay, I understand we're strapped for time according to your schedule.
Yeah.
So, if we elaborate and you can, that's great. But in case we can't, so what you just said about managing teams, this and that, so on, and operating at a high level. So, not everybody operates at a high level. Some people don't operate at a high level for their whole lives.
yeah,
Let's not go into the analysis about why and all that.
yeah.
But I want to ask you, for young, budding professional in their career, be that music, aviation, or anything else,
Anything.
what tips? So the word I'm going to use is there's a million adjectives I could use to describe you, but let's say we use the word balanced in the sense to, because you're like one of those people. I don't know if the word's polymath, but I think like you get multiple things done
Yeah,
reasonably well or more than reasonably well, so I have friends who've worked in personal development companies. That's a type of breed of person. There's other people who do this thing really well and that thing really well. But I think we share that common thread where we get a finger in a bunch of pies and all those things work simultaneously.
Yeah.
I could be biased, but I think that's the only way to live a full, balanced life. So
yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
so the fact that you can do that well and succeed, that means that there is, in my opinion, a thread of some kind of success practices, habits, mindsets, and behaviors that are leading to success in whatever field you enter.
Yep.
Like I get the feeling that if now I say, okay, your 10-year aviation journey has ended, now you're progressing to, let's say, opening multiple flying schools, or let's say you want to become a fighter pilot, or let's say you want to be the president of the United States, whatever. I get the feeling that you'll do a reasonably good job at even that. And this is an ability that not many people have. So what are these underlying habits or anything you can share with anybody who's new and budding and upcoming and going, how does this guy play 5 instruments or then do a flying school? I can't even do one correctly.
Well, I think
What could you share with them?
this is very interesting, right? This is actually about knowing yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like at a very young age, I knew that I'm able to learn things, and it's not me. Anyone is able to learn multiple things, you know, like at the same time. But every one of us picked our things to learn. Some people learn art, dancing and cooking and all of these things. I just decided to go and learn 10 instruments, you know, like that was what I decided to do,
Right.
you know, at a young age.
Right.
And if you look at your own history and say, I'm good at learning things, this many things in this way, then your next decision can be based on what you know of yourself, you know, and your analysis of your options, the next option, how well you'll do in that option. I guess it's you compare that, like, let's say for example, I looked at flying and thought, actually this is very similar to music. You know, like I thought to myself, like, I'm sitting in a cockpit, it's a bunch of switches. I've been a DJ before. You know, there's a bunch of switches. You know what I mean?
Totally.
You know, there's a screen. Oh, there's a screen. I've used that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You mean the room is moving? I've been drunk. The room was moving. You know, like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like, if you really look at it from that point of view, there isn't much difference between operating an airplane and a beach party on Sentosa Island. You know, like, except for one is on the ground and the other one's, you know, up in the air. You know, so in terms of transferring skills, that's what you're asking me. Like, how do I know if this is what career I'm going to do next? You know, you said to me, like, what if you became the president of the United States? You thought that you said I might do a good job. Well, maybe not. What I would do is I would look at the job description and say, what is he doing and do I have the skills to match that? And it doesn't matter what your education is. It doesn't matter whether you studied the skills to do that, or because some people studied it, but they suck at it.
Right.
You know, like there's stuff that I have studied that I just suck at. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't consider going down the path of a career just because I studied something. Instead, I would choose the career based on the skills I know that I can excel at. And that might be a really weird set of skills.
And what are those skills? Because this is something deeper than just, I know how to pluck the strings on a bass
Yeah.
with time, with pitch, all these multiple areas of my brain firing.
Yeah.
Sure, but what is that skill that transferred over to flying, or whatever multiple skills?
Well, I would look at it as things like, am I dealing with an interface?
Okay.
You know, so that might be, and you can assess your performance as a
Yes.
DJ, for example,
Yes.
across not just a task of running a room as a DJ.
Yeah.
You can also say, okay, what about me in the gaming world? Am I good at gaming?
Okay.
Or I might be good at gaming. So maybe I've got good hand-eye coordination.
Coordination.
So now
gotcha.
you've make a list. I got good hand-eye coordination. I can multitask. I can listen to a request while pushing the fader on one, making sure the volumes are matched and speeding up one track.
Correct.
And what's that song you want to hear next? You want to hear that song next, and you're thinking, your mind is able to function in this way.
I think I'm talking about something deeper though.
Right.
Like, thanks for that. That's valuable. But I'm also talking about, you know how in music, you just straight away became, or not straight away, but you became like the band leader towards the end.
Oh.
I don't know if you did that your whole life, but that's what I saw. Then in flying, you're telling me you run, am I getting this right? You run a flying school?
Yeah.
Or you own the flying
I
school?
own flying school, yeah.
You own a flying school?
Yes.
Okay. So many people would go into flying with that day jobber mentality.
Yeah.
I'm going to do well. I'm going to fly the plane. I have a perfect record. I go home, I sleep, I eat my chicken biryani or whatever your race is. I eat my fish and chips and
That's right.
I go to bed. I exercise, I work out. My boss will tell me what to do.
That's right.
I will fly and I'll keep getting a salary. But I'm seeing something more there. And I don't know if you're being humble or I wasn't clear enough in the question, but I'm seeing that you would go in and start leading things in a sense.
Well, that's another thing.
Or is that,
we were talking.
yeah, so what is
we were
that?
talking
What
about,
are those skills?
We were talking about identifying what skills you've got and
So what are those
multitasking and all that.
skills? Yeah.
Leadership is one of them too. You
Okay,
gotta
go
pick
ahead.
that up. You got to say, wait a minute, I've actually led stuff in my life, and then you got to think about, wait a minute, how did I get to this leadership position? So while you're describing, you met this guy and he was already a band leader, right? That was how you see it, and that's how
Yeah.
the world will always see leaders. Like no one sees the shit that the leader goes through to become the leader. Like no one realize. You know how hard it is to rally a bunch of musicians and say, let's get together and form a band that's going to earn money tomorrow.
I failed. I know how hard it is.
It is.
I
It's
failed.
ridiculously hard.
Yeah.
And it's not just bands, but if you are able to do that once, then you're able to do twice. And then the funny thing is, nobody is born into leadership. To become a good leader, the army will teach you that. The army will teach you. You're a soldier first, and then you got to qualify for CSPAC or OCS, and then you got to. That's how you get places. You can't just be born and trumpets. Pa, 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 here comes Captain Sherman. It doesn't happen. It doesn't work this way.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you have to be a recruit, do the push-ups, do go and run.
So could you share two things you need to become a good leader?
Well, one is you got to be able to follow. And you got to prove to yourself, not to anyone else, not to your boss, not to anyone else, that you actually can get the job done exceptionally well. Because if you can't get the job done, you cannot tell someone else how to do it.
Right.
And it's the same thing when I ran bands. I used to tell them, if I cannot play these parts, how can I ask you to play it? And one of the things I did was I was so adamant that I wanted a quality sound that I would say, look, I'm not just going to learn the part. I'm going to learn the part on your damn instrument. So if I can do that at the minimal level, then you got to do better than me because you have no other instrument to play.
Correct. Because
you got to do better than me.
For
And
sure.
that's a fundamental and that's a leadership thinking. Same thing I do in my job. I no longer teach, flying. I have a team of instructors now to do the teaching, but I would not ask my instructors to do something that I cannot do myself.
Right.
If I wouldn't do it, I would say, look, I'm not going to do it myself. But also, leading is very interesting. You've got to understand that what motivates you as a leader is not the same things that motivate the people that you are leading.
Right.
Like for example, I might be motivated by having a KPI for myself and say, okay, look, I want to see all my flights off the ground for the day. Maybe this is my present KPI. It's not my ongoing KPI, but it might be my present KPI. But that guy might have a different thing. His KPI might be, I want to do 2 flights today, and hopefully I'll have enough energy to go party tonight.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And have a great night tonight. So he might be actually motivated to hold back from performing at his job.
Right.
So as a leader, it's our job not to slam his goal. He if he doesn't go party tonight, he might not feel motivated to keep working for 6 months. Do you know what I mean? Like, so your job is to think, where is this guy with what he's willing to give you? Is that of value to you? If he's not of value to you, don't pick this guy. And that's where a lot of leaders fail. They pick the wrong people. They start picking people out of wait a minute, this is all I have, and you're the only one willing to work with me, so I'm going to pick you. Do you know what I mean? Like
I fell into that for a while.
You know what I mean? But if you look at
I know what you mean firsthand.
Yeah, if you look at the leaders that we know, even Lee Kuan Yew was the same. He would pick a cabinet or a bunch of people that were utterly capable or nothing else. Do you know what I mean? Like he would not accept anything other than exactly what he wanted, even if it meant stopping the entire operation completely just to get what he wanted. And that's the way I convince myself that that's an option is by telling myself on the daily, I started from nothing. So if you are threatening me with you're going to be nothing, you mean I'm going to be what I was before? Like that's not scary. You know
exactly.
you know what I mean? Like yeah. So that shouldn't have an impact on whether or not I make a decision to push forward.
Yeah.
It only makes me think whether or not I choose you to be part of the team. It's not going to stop me from achieving my objectives, and I'm going to go full throttle in that direction until I achieve these objectives. Everyone else who's part of the team is going to be part of the team for now. And it's interesting because what happens when you find the right team is these guys will stay with you for a very long time, and then it goes beyond just work, It becomes like work. It becomes like friendship. Like I've a guy that works with, I would say with me, even though yes, on paper I'm his employer, but the reality is he works with me. And I say that he's one of the highest paid guys in my company. And he started with me as a fresh instructor, right? And what started out is hey, do you want to work? I've got an opportunity, and he fit the bill. Turned into hey, we've got aligned goals that go beyond money, And now we are friends. Now in Australia, he loves to go to the shooting range and shoot guns. And so when he calls me and says, Sherman, go shooting, I'm going shooting with this guy. He's a friend of mine.
Right.
Turns out I actually like shooting guns too, so I don't mind going shooting with him.
Nice.
And he's got cool things that he wants to do. He wants to go on. He's got a son, and he goes out with his son, and he goes flying with his son. And if he wants to use a company airplane, and we can come to an arrangement on how that's going to happen. And I'm very easy with that, because he's not just a staff, he's not just an employee. He's actually a friend too, But at the same time, there's a level of respect, expectation, clear cut. Defined expectation of what the company expects him to do, right, as a job, and I'm going to be accountable for the performance of this guy.
Yeah.
And so I need him to fight just as strong as me to achieve this.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know if that came out right, but yeah, it might be.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
For the last part, the last section of this interview and chat, I want to talk about spirituality a little bit. So I've found that. The way you're looking at me that seriously is shaking me. No, it's not.
No, it's all good.
So, no, it's fine. So, I have gone through my own spiritual journey. I don't know if you know, I'm actually a priest for the Zoroastrian religion.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so my dad's like the main priest who prays every Sunday at the prayer place we have here. And I kind of got forced into being a priest when I was 13.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they were like, forced in a sense, like they were, Asian parenting. They were like, no, you have to become a priest. And I'm like, why? Like, you just have to, because there's this thing about if you don't do it for 3 generations, your family loses it.
Right.
Like, loses the ability. I mean,
I suppose it's just part of the structure.
I don't know who invented that. That's surely not from God. I'm sure, like, God, the all-seeing God, didn't go like, if you don't do it for 3 generations, you're not holy. I'm sure some idiot invented that.
As with most religions, right?
And most traditions, I'm happy to say that about the tradition. But anyway, I'm sure there must be some nice mythological story or I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, for better or for worse, that was like a bittersweet thing. Like, oh, I'm being forced to do it. But then I also realized I got a lot more holy. I had these like powers, maybe not from the priesthood, but just generally how I live.
Okay.
Things start happening. I start seeing things. They're coincidences, which some people would call miracles.
Right. Okay.
Now they're all on my website. But I'm very interested to know, because in the area that you are good at or that has consumed a large part of your life, sometimes you get curious and you want to learn more and more.
Okay.
And so I went down this spiritual awakening bender over the last 5-6 years.
Right.
7-8 years. And I won't go into all those details, but I got very interested in it. And I want to find out from you, you are a Christian or...
I was born in a Catholic family.
Okay.
Baptized when I was like a baby.
Right.
My mom was actually Buddhist.
Okay.
And then when she married my dad, she became Catholic.
Okay.
But they are very, very religious.
Okay.
I, on the other hand,
Yeah.
I have a belief in my religion, but I also don't really resonate with a lot of things.
In the religion?
in the religion, in many other religions. And so what I've done at the end is just define myself for myself,
Yeah.
the parts of what I believe to be true,
Right.
and I follow that.
Right.
And it's really interesting because there was one guy that I met maybe when I was 25 or something, who said to me, because I said to him, bro, I'm not very religious. And he looked at me and said, man, you're probably more religious than you think.
Yeah.
And you don't even know it.
Was that me?
No, it was actually, no, it wasn't.
Because I say that to people
You
sometimes.
do,
Yeah.
but it wasn't you. But it was, funnily
Okay.
enough, he was very similar to you.
Okay.
You know, I'll tell you his name after this thing stops rolling.
All right.
You know, if you want to know.
Yeah.
And he's a guy I also respect. You know, I was a kid when I met him. He's much older than me.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Gotcha.
and he said that to me, and I was thinking to myself, whatever that means at that time. So I will say, like, yes, I have got Christian beliefs, you know,
Yeah.
and values. But if you know anything about my life, I don't go to church on Sundays.
Okay.
You know, I don't go to confession. It doesn't mean I'm not sorry. You know what I mean? Like, for
Of
the things
course.
I do.
Of course.
You know, it doesn't mean I don't believe in God. I think there
Yeah.
is an existence of God. That's just me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to sit down and talk to anybody about it. And I promise you, I am not going to convince you to believe in a God. If you don't believe in a God, that's cool.
Yeah.
Don't believe,
Yeah.
do you, man? You know, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know,
I found that there's a difference between spirituality and religion. So a lot of people look at it as the same thing.
yeah.
Or sometimes, you know, we have these words in our consciousness, which we've heard, we've read, but we haven't really explored that area.
Yeah.
So we haven't really gone deep.
Yeah.
Like before you became a pilot is a pilot is a pilot.
Yeah.
But once
That's
you
it,
go
yeah.
in, you understand, wait, there's 1,800 different types of pilots.
Yeah. And different-
And you can't really call this one a pilot and you can't really call, okay. So,
or airplanes or whatever. Yeah.
correct.
I get
So
it, yeah.
similarly, when I went into this area, I realized that a lot of people are, so is my theory, and it's starting to be proven true, I think, where a lot of the gods, goddesses, prophets, let's just say the ones who lived on earth, okay? Let's say like Jesus, let's say he lived on earth. I personally don't know.
Yeah, okay.
'Cause I was not alive during that time.
Fair
So
enough,
we're looking
yeah.
at scientific, empirical evidence. I don't know.
Yeah. And,
Or at
and
least
I'm impartial with this anyway. Yeah.
For myself, I don't know. But I do channel him in my spiritual readings from time to
Right.
time. But again, a scientist could tell you that's just your unconscious mind because you heard about him since you were born. Anyway,
Right. Fair. Yeah.
yeah. So, but I think that all these, let's say he was real, and let's say Buddha was real,
Okay.
and let's say Shiva was real,
Let's say all of them were real.
or let's say
Yeah.
I think all these people, what they were actually pointing to is the nature of the universe and of human behavior, and trying to teach that to people to be kind and good and loving and blah blah blah. And so in the spiritual circles, we call that spirituality.
Okay.
And we call religions basically organized groups of people, for better or for worse, but let's assume better, at the time that they started,
Yeah.
to try to teach people these spiritual values
Right.
that these spiritual masters were talking about
Right.
and trying to share. At least that's my understanding of it.
Right.
So would you say, like, you can call it God or religion or spirituality or whatever, but would you say that any of that has guided you in your path, in your life, in
Yeah,
your career,
yeah, I suppose.
outside your career?
Yeah, I suppose. And it's nice that you define the difference between religion and spirituality.
Okay.
Because on both sides, whether I define what my connection spiritually to anything spiritual, however you want to define a religion, in my experience, I'm not so. I guess I wouldn't call it. I'm not as blessed, I suppose. I don't have any first-hand accounts of miraculous things happening.
Okay.
You know, and that doesn't mean that doesn't exist. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right.
It just means I didn't see it. Do you know what I
Sure.
mean? Like it might be happening and I just missing it, or maybe I'm just not. I don't know, the wrong time, wrong place. Who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
you know,
a million possibilities.
Yeah, whatever it is, I don't see it. But I do think that it's also connected to performance, man. Like you know, like I don't think like I can mentally be in the right frame of mind to perform efficiently at anything I do without some level of spiritual connection. You know what
So
I mean?
you pray? Or how do you connect?
100%. I pray.
You pray,
like,
okay.
you know, like and I know like 100%. It doesn't mean that it's a God thing or whatever. You know, it just happens to be how I do it. Now,
Right.
I think the main thing is I found what works for me. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it might not be the same as what works for you.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean? Like and that's why I have no problem respecting other people with what you know. One of the big things I really believe in is I don't want to convince you to believe what I believe because it may not work for you.
Yeah.
The number of times people have told me, Sherman, you know, this is for you got to do these things, and this is what if you do these spiritual things, you will see experience enlightenment, and then your life will be better. Maybe for you, you know. But I don't want to change what's not broken, man. If I'm down a path and this works, like why would I change it? This is fantastic. Let's keep going.
I wouldn't change it either.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and all I can do is hope for that person that that he or she experienced this, or they, them, whatever. I don't know how the audience of this, you know, like experiences the same thing. You know, like they experience the same connection. You know, like with whatever they believe in. You know, at the end of the day, I look at life. You have one life, or maybe more. Who knows? But one that we know of. You know, this is the one that we know of, and we can only do what we have in this time that we know. And you know, what's your memory of it for the last 10 years? How is it going to impact the next 10? You know, what if it ended tomorrow? Do you know what I mean?
Correct.
Are you happy? Do you know what I mean? With what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I say it's connected to performance. Your human performance is connected to whether or not, like, your next decision towards what you want to achieve in your life. It may not even be musically or career-wise or love life-wise. It may just be, I have a vision for my life and I don't see it happening right now. Your next step might take you a step closer, or might do nothing, or it might take you a step further away from where you are. And 90% of things that happen in my life, I won't say 90%, maybe 50% of it is luck. You know, or chance. I happen to be born in Singapore. Do you know what I mean? Like, I happen to be Singaporean. If I was born somewhere else, opportunities be different.
Different, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah. And not just that, in my family, you know, I was born into this family with these beliefs, with these values.
Correct.
You know, and my peers would have a different thing,
Yeah.
different take on that.
Mhm.
They would have a different set of opportunities.
Correct.
You know, I can't save the world, but I can make the best of my time.
Yeah.
Now, if everyone started making the best of their time with what they got, you know, you got lemonade, make lemon. I mean, you got lemons, make lemonade. You know,
Yeah.
you got, you know, you got oranges, make orange juice. You know, like, it's just different juice, bro. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
At the risk of sounding a bit biased, I think the same way, actually.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Do you have any interesting quotes before we end?
Rock and roll. That's it.
I love that.
It's rock and roll, bro.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, that's it, bro. Like,
All right, man.
yeah.
Thanks so much for doing this.
No worries, man.
I appreciate
And
your
Zephyr,
time.
always nice to see you. More
Yes.
than I mean, I don't know if this does any benefit for the people who are actually watching this, but I'm glad we caught up. You know,
Yeah.
You know,
When you try and do this out, yeah, go ahead.
It's always interesting doing these things with you. Because the last time we had a thing, we sat down at Coffee Bean. This was years ago, and we just had a chat. It was you and me in a chat over Coffee Bean. It was a very deep chat about
can't
life. We
remember.
just talked about it. I remember it was Coffee Bean Holland Village.
I thought all the chats were deep chats.
No, but the first time we did it, I think, is it the first time we did it in Coffee Bean Holland Village? It's very memorable for me. You know, this was very memorable. I don't know what it is. I've got a photo.
Oh,
Yeah,
you mean not the last one with Tim and... Oh, the one where you brought your bags.
Yeah.
And then we took the picture of the two bags.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was very memorable for me. I was like, you know,
Yeah.
it's cool, man. Like,
Yeah.
Because in the process of me explaining these things to you,
Yeah.
I also can see another perspective.
Yeah.
And hearing myself talk about it sounds weird in my own head.
Yeah.
But hopefully it means something to somebody. I don't know, man. Let's figure it out. Rock and roll.
Okay,
You know,
man.
yeah.
Thank you.
Done. Rock and roll.
Thanks for watching, guys. This was Sherman Anthony. Are you open to people connecting with you on socials or
Yeah,
sending
sure.
you emails
Sure,
or
yeah, sure.
maybe going to your flying school? Adelaide.
Look,
right?
I won't plug the flying school.
Why not?
Yeah, look, because I'll tell you, that's another thing. It's a whole other thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a whole
Let's
other thing.
keep it short because we're short of time.
I just believe that, you know, it's like going to a school is like going to a school. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you gotta pick the school that works for you.
Sure.
I might not be it. You know, like, I might be it.
Yeah, they might. They can look at the website.
Yeah, but
Right.
look, I don't want to abuse this opportunity. This isn't what this is about. You know what I mean? So if you're into flying, give me a buzz. I'll give you a very impartial, transparent, like, I'll give you my personal. If you want to know my contact details, contact Zephyr.
That's exactly what I meant.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
meant they can contact you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna plug the school in the video. It's not. I think it's not fair.
Oh, that's fine.
yeah.
Okay. So, but can people be in contact with you?
Yeah,
With
100%.
your email or something
Sure.
or a social?
Yeah.
We can put it in the description.
Yeah.
And that's cool, man. Thanks for that.
yeah.
And okay, guys, see you guys on the next episode.
Just 1 minute. See you tomorrow.
Thank you and bye bye.